что у нас есть очень много о чем с ним поговорить. Я вот только что вернулась из Израиля, буквально позавчера. Была я там на Всемирном еврейском конгрессе, где в основном ключевое слово был сионизм. И вот насчет этого я как раз хотела поговорить сегодня с раввином Манисом Фридманом, потому что вот хотелось бы понять, хорош или плох сионизм для еврейского народа. И вообще дать ему правильное определение, потому что сколько там разных сайтов я не просмотрела по поводу правильного определения, что такое сионизм, все-таки ни в одном из них не было повтора. То есть нету четкого определения, это какое-то такое непонятное... обобщенное понятие, у каждого, по-моему, свое. Вот поэтому сейчас я уже не теряю ни одной минуты времени и перехожу к нашему самому гениальному ведущему, раввину Манису Фридману. Rabbi Manis Friedman, hello, thank God it's Tuesday. I just came from Israel, from the World Zionist Congress. And obviously, Israel was celebrating the 75th year of independence. And everything, the key word there was Zionism, Zionism, Zionism. However, first of all, it's very hard to understand what Zionism truly means to anyone in particular, because I went to different dictionaries, different websites, different organizations, and everybody has a different explanation of what Zionism is. It seems like more of an opinion than anything factual or concrete. So this is one of the things I would love to speak to you about today, to see if we can actually understand what is the true meaning of Zionism. And of course, is Zionism good for the Jewish people? I mean, maybe when it was originated in late 1800s, maybe it was a very good thing, but is it a good thing now? So that would be the topic for today, and I so look forward to getting your wisdom on all of these things, as the rest of our listeners as well.
How was the rest of your trip?
The trip to Israel was amazing. Israel is amazing. The people are amazing. I have very mixed feelings about the politics. Well, actually, I don't have mixed feelings about the politics. I'm being nice when I say that.
So you were there for what purpose?
So I'm a delegate of the World Zionist Organization, and we were supposed to vote on different issues. One of the most important issues that was raised was the rule of return, the law of return, rather, and that's a law that how Israel accepts Jewish people, that this is a Jewish state and everybody who is Jewish is entitled to get a citizenship there. But in the 1970s, that law was amended, and all you need is one grandfather, and doesn't matter on which side, maternal or paternal, and that also gives you the same right, and pretty much Israel must accept you. So there's a lot of anger around this issue. There's a lot of different opinions about this issue. This is one of the things I would like to get your opinion on as well, and also halachic approach to it. So unfortunately, in my opinion, Zionism today divides the people. The World Zionist Congress was a very good example of that. There's two sides, and it's not as civil as I would have liked to see it be. And unfortunately, anything that divides Jewish people, to me, is not very attractive. That's my opinion. I'm sure a lot of people share it as well. So, that's like a brief overview of what I was doing in the last 2 weeks. But I think it's more important and more interesting to understand from a deeper perspective of where we at as far as Jewish people and Zionism and how it's affecting us and what direction is it taking us?
There's a lot of confusion, a lot of duplication. Is this a Jewish state? Of course, a Jewish state.
See, I was even a little bit hesitant to answer this because at some points it seems like it might not be.
Yeah, but it obviously is because Jews have immediate citizenship. However, you don't have to be Jewish. Is that a little confusing?
Yes.
If you're Jewish, you get immediate citizenship. But you don't have to be Jewish for that. What are you saying? Talking out of both sides of your mouth. So, what is Zionism? Is Zionism a Jewish idea? Well, if you're being Jewish, you don't need any more ideas. Be Jewish. Go with the Jewish idea. Is Zionism the appreciation and the respect for the land of Israel? No, that's Jewish. Is this country in the Middle East a democracy? Oh, yes, of course, it's a democracy. Yeah, but just for Jews. So you'll never figure this one out. It is so complex because it's all double talk. We don't need an ism of any kind in addition to Judaism. That's what was wrong with the whole concept to begin with. Now, you want to organize a return to Israel? Fine, return to Israel. Why are you making a new policy, a new politics, a new philosophy, a new religion? Jews want to go back to their homelands. So go back. You want to organize it under a flag, under a motto, fine. Don't add another ism. Unless you're saying that Judaism is not your ism, you want a new one. And so you have kids growing up in Israel, and they cannot decide whether they are Jewish or Israeli. If you're Israeli, well, then so are the Arabs who live in Israel and are Israeli. And yet, you're killing each other. So being an Israeli is a dangerous concept. And the whole thing is just so not thorough. It's like some guy sitting around coming up with new ideas every day, not thinking them through, not getting down to real truths. So it bothers me. It bothers me when they say, oh, but Israel is a democracy. So what? So they pay the price for being a democracy, but they're not really a democracy. They paid a price for being Zionists, but then nobody knows what Zionist means. It's very frustrating. But what we know for sure, what's visible and tangible, there are Jews in Israel who are religious, whether Dati or Haredi, meaning religious and very religious. And then there's the secular, non-religious, anti-religious. That's for sure. That's real. However, in the last couple of months, secularism is failing. It's imploding on itself. People want to say that there's a war between the religious and the non-religious. There is no such war. And what's destroying secularism is not the religious power. It's destroying itself. One of the big mistakes, of course, is adopting all these liberal ideas to where you've completely cut out or diminished greatly your population. People are not having children. They're not getting married. They're not having children. So in a couple of years from now, there'll be no secular Jews left, and the vast majority will be religious Jews and Arabs. And they see it coming. And they're panicking. So the first stage is to blame somebody else. The religious parties are taking over. They're going to force us to be religious. No, they're not. Nobody forces anybody to be religious. You're panicking because you're imploding from within. You've got nothing to stand on. Secularism is not a philosophy, and it's not a lifestyle. It's just laziness. So, communism went first, democracy came after, completely imploded on itself, and now secularism, it's gone. So communism, secularism, Zionism, it's gone. Whatever it was, nobody was really sure, but we're sure that it's gone. It's over.
Rabbi Fridman, what connects Jewish people to Israel? Because obviously in the World Zionist Congress, you have a variety of observant and non-observant Jewish people. There are a lot of, as you mentioned, secular people, then there's also a lot of Orthodox people. So everybody's Jewish, but everybody's on a different level. But everybody feels very passionate about their connection to Israel. Everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're an observant Jew or not. What is that connection? What connects people to Israel? And they're all very passionate about it. Definitely. The love for Israel is within everybody who was attending. Doesn't matter what their lifestyle is.
Well, in reality, in truth, you cannot separate love of Israel from the love of Jews. They go together. Like you can't separate the love of the house you grew up in without the love of your parents. If you didn't love your parents, you didn't love the house you grew up in. If you love your parents, you love the house you grew up in. So the focus really should be on the love of a fellow Jew. When Jews get together and they care about each other, they can celebrate their homeland, their birthplace, their country. But here's, I think, behind all the other issues, bottom line, any human being, anywhere in the world and any time in history, was free to choose their religion. I don't mean politically free. That's a different problem. But if you convert to a religion, you become that. If you convert to Christianity, you become a Christian. If you convert to Islam, you become a Muslim. But if a Jew converts to Islam, he's still a Jew. If a Jew converts to Christianity, he's still a Jew. Why? Why are Jews different? Why are you the exception? Why is it that no matter what religion you practice, you're a Jew? The world is frustrated by that. Why can't you be like everybody else? But then again, they know we can't. The previous Archbishop of France, whose name was Lustig, was a nice Jewish boy. And when he was appointed or elected, however it happens, that he became the Archbishop of France, in his acceptance speech, he said, "You know, I was born Jewish." As if anybody cared, right? But he had to mention it. And when he died, he asked for a Jewish burial and that Kaddish should be said for him. So you can be the Archbishop of France and you're still a Jew. Why is that? The other frustration that the world has is that every country in the world, every piece of geography belongs to whoever conquers it. That's the way of the world. The land belongs to whoever conquers it, except Israel. The Babylonians conquered Israel, it was Israel. The Romans conquer Israel, it's Israel. The Turks conquer Israel, and it's still Israel. Why is it different from all other lands? And it's not that Jews think so. When the Romans conquered Israel, they did not call it Rome. When Babylonians conquered it, they didn't call it Babylonian. And it didn't become part of Turkey. It was the Holy Land. Anyway, so these two mysteries go together. Why is the Jew always a Jew no matter what he does? And why does Israel belong to Jews no matter who conquers it? Well, there's only one answer. Because that's how God created it. God said, this land I'm saving for the Jewish people. And there's nothing anyone can do about that. And that's not a theory. That's a historical fact. No one has ever been able to change the description of the nature of the land of Israel. The land of Israel and the people of Israel. You cannot separate them. And that's why there's absolutely no need for a Zionistic philosophy or policy or political system. Jews belong in the Jewish land, and the Jewish land belongs to Jews. Why are you creating an identity that didn't exist 100 years ago? When you have an identity that's already thousands of years old. So Jews and Israel, the people of Israel and the land of Israel, go back thousands of years. And then you come along and say, oh, we're going to turn this into our land. No. Why are you doing that?
Rabbi Fridman, everything you just said makes absolutely perfect sense. How come this is not clear to so many people who are trying to fight so hard to dilute Israel, to accept non-Jewish people into Israel? And we're talking about like in huge numbers, tremendous numbers, and they're growing, and the Jewish people who are supposed to be everything you just said are fighting so hard for everybody's equality, for everybody's acceptance, for everybody's rights, and trying so hard to make Israel into everything else, not Israel, make it equal to everybody and everything that's outside of Israel.
Well, 2,000 years of abuse can do some serious damage, to put it mildly. We have an insane, literally insane need to gain approval from the world that has rejected us and abused us and discriminated against us for 2,000 years. I don't know what that's called in psychology, but there is such a syndrome where you want your abuser's approval. Desperately. So if democracy is popular, then let's be a democracy. Everybody will love us. If equality is a value or a virtue that the world appreciates, we'll give everybody equal rights. Whatever you want, we'll be it. We'll do it. Just like us. 2,000 years of damage. But there's some resilience within us that we've always had, and of course we still have, that says, why do I care what everybody else thinks? There was a meeting years ago, not many, but years ago, in the Knesset, and somebody said, Europe, the European nations are not going to approve of this. And I think Netanyahu said, or somebody said, the European nations? You mean where they had the Holocaust? Why would I care what they want, like, or approve? What are we doing? You're worried about their opinion? You know their opinion. And we don't agree with it. Why? And the reason really deep down inside is because Mashiach is not here. And we were told a long time ago that Jews will not be able to establish a sovereign state until we have Mashiach. Is Israel really a sovereign state? That's the big question. It is the land of the Jews. It's the Holy Land. Right now, is Jews have the power and the authority. But is it a sovereign state? No, it's not. There's no sovereignty if you're terrified of what others are going to say. If you can't make your own decisions, if you can't make your own rules, if you cannot defend your right to exist, or if you have to defend your right, you're not a sovereign state. You exist because the world allows you to. That's not sovereignty. So, if we went back to simply being Jews, with Jewish values, with Jewish morals, and with Jewish beliefs, we wouldn't need Zionism, and we wouldn't need the approval of anybody. And you hear the argument, but if we don't, get along with the United States, they won't sell us weapons, and they won't support us, and they won't. Maybe you're right. what that means is that you're not a sovereign state. You can't exist on your own. So you're not a sovereign state. It's interesting that in World War II, France could not stand up to the Nazis. Czechoslovakia could not stand up to the Nazis. Poland could not stand up to the Nazis. But Latvia did. They could not capture Latvia. And it's a much smaller country than the others. That's called sovereignty. If during the Soviet Union times, if a Soviet plane flew over Latvia, they shot it down. What are they going to say? They're going to come after us. It's our airspace. We shoot you down. That's a sovereign state. But if you have to stop and think, should I shoot back now or you're not a sovereign state. So what should we do? We should absolutely support the Jewish lives in Israel in every way to the best of our abilities. But stop apologizing. You aggravate the world by doing that.
Rabbi Fridman, what does it mean? I spoke to, it was actually part of the trip to speak to both sides, the secular side and the religious Haredi side, as they're called in Israel, as we are called in Israel. And both agree that lately the opposition is escalating. In the last 6 months, they actually even identified that in the last 6 months, there's more conflict between these two sides. What do you think that means?
Well, there's always been. And until recently, the power was completely in the hands of the secular. Now something shifted. Democratically, by election. But the secular can't take it. So all of a sudden, democracy is not even interesting anymore. This is not our government. We don't approve of it. We're going to shut it down. That's not exactly democratic, is it? Okay. So without a democracy, who cares? I mean, really, who cares? So we keep paying the price for values that are not even our own. So if it was working, okay, I would understand. It's not working. Why are you worshiping something that is hurting you? So make up your mind. What are you? What do you stand for? What are your values? And then live by it. Stop trying to win favor in everybody's eyes. Because the world doesn't like it. It's painful to deal with people who are constantly shifting.
Friedman, last Thursday, when we were still in Jerusalem, there was the Million People March who came out in favor of judicial reforms. It was amazing, terrific crowd, very peaceful, very focused, very civil, very patriotic. It was a really nice, it was very nice to be a part of. And we spoke about it. We spoke about it a couple of programs ago, that it would be nice if people would come out, not against, but for, and it has taken place, very good turnout. The question is, what kind of outcome do you think, or if any outcome, this will bring for the state of Israel?
You know, we need to be optimistic. We must be optimistic. There's really no other choice. So, hopefully, this very, very public expression of strong conviction on both sides will finally wake people up to a very simple reality. If there's a problem between a husband and wife, the only solution is for each of them to take the blame on themselves. It's the only solution. Because it is the truth. There's no way this would be a problem if you did the right thing. So it can't be a one-sided issue. It's not one person creating the problem. It's two people. But they keep blaming each other instead of taking the blame. Well, you can't do that forever. You can't keep acting as if you do everything right. You've never done anything annoying or upsetting or disturbing, or it's only the other party is wrong. And everything they do is wrong. That's so childish. That's so immature. So all it would take to bring some understanding, because I'd like to think there is no real hatred. There's just very inflexible opinions. So all it would take is for both sides, the most religious and the most secular, simply admit one flaw, one mistake, one bad policy on your part. And then you have grounds for communication. But when you cannot admit any mistake, then there's no talking to you. You're impossible. The religious have to admit that they made some terrible policy mistakes and that they have to correct it. And the secular have to admit that they put their hopes in a false god and it's collapsing. It really is so easy to find the middle ground, because that's where we really are. You have to fight very hard to keep your extreme opinion going, because it's not true, it's not real. You got to keep pumping it and enough.
Rabbi Friedman, but there is interference. There is interference. There's interference by the media. There is interference by lack of education in Israel, lack of Torah education. From my observation, by speaking to people, I see that those who are very against actually know nothing about what they're against. For real. They're just against. They just don't want it. But what exactly they don't want, they have no clue. I think the media is extremely manipulative. And I think it's been taken over by the evil there no less than it has been all over the world. And how do we fight this aspect in our homeland? Or deal with it?
The media everywhere is very powerful. But the way they become powerful is by pandering to people's weaknesses, like the weird pleasure of seeing others suffer, bad news, horror movies, or horror news. So the news is actually competing with horror movies to see who could be more shocking and more disturbing, because that people react to it. If people stopped reacting to it, the media would change immediately because all they want is your attention. So this way they're getting your attention. If you change and say, I'm not interested, then all of a sudden they'd be feeding you something else. The media is fake in the sense that it doesn't represent anything. It claims to be leading by first checking where the people want to go. Oh, is that what you want? Okay, fine, we will lead you there. No, you don't lead us there. You're just catering. So yeah, whoever takes charge or takes control of the media will present what they think stimulates the masses. And of course, bad news is very stimulating, because good news you have in your own life. Bad news you have to hear about from weird places. Anyway, the point is, if people, the masses, would simply say, I'm not interested. Stop buying the newspaper, stop listening to that's it, they'll change immediately. Or they'll disappear. So really, it's the people's values that in the end determines everything. So you're right. The education in Israel, Jewish education in Israel, is very poor. Whose fault is that? You could say, well, it's because of the secular society, the secular... No.
Is it the government? I would say the government.
The government. But it's not. It's the fault of those who know. Those who know and should have been teaching failed. They chickened out. Oh, they're not interested. They don't want to hear. So that's it. So you quit. That's like the yeshiva that sends kids home and throws them out of school because they're not stimulated to learning. Well, isn't that your job? You're the school. Well, your kid doesn't want to study. that is such a cop-out. Yeah, so the religious have to admit that they have been very condescending, dismissive, insulated. They really didn't care to bother to offer education, to offer inspiration. They didn't. All they sit there is constantly condemning. What have you done about it? Oh, we're going to pass some laws or get more money for the yeshiva. It's not money, it's students. How do you get more students to the yeshiva? Or whatever. How do you get the yeshiva to more students? Anyway, the point is, they've both made some terrible mistakes. The most religious and the most secular, terrible mistakes. And the tragedy is that they cannot admit it. But if they did, things would be beautiful.
Rabbi Fridman, amazing. What a program. So much light, so much wisdom, so much knowledge, so much to think about. I thank you so much on behalf of my community, my radio, myself, and thank you for this time that you allocate for us weekly, and it's absolutely priceless and precious. Huh?
Almost weekly.
Almost weekly. Well, almost. Almost
yeah.
is
Officially,
awesome.
Officially, it's weekly.
So, thank you again for this time. Unfortunately, our time has come to an end, but thank you, and we look so much forward to our next program.
Have a great week.
You too, Rabbi Fridman. Thank you so much. И, конечно, огромное спасибо всем, кто нас сегодня слушал. Спасибо за то, что вас интересуют более такие глубокие вещи в жизни, за то, что вы ищете свет и позитивность, за то, что вы живете больше, чем только своими делами, своими мыслями, потому что именно так мы можем все вместе объединиться и сделать этот мир лучше, а самое главное, быстрее. И вот с этими словами я Аня Пекерман и передача Thank God It's Tuesday. Прощаемся со всеми до следующей недели.